Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
All right, speed round. I'm going to rattle off some names, and when I hit it, buzz it, okay?
I will tell you.
You got me?
Yeah.
All right, Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Sabrina, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby, Taylor, Tara, Tammy, Lauren, Charlene, Chantel, Courtney, Misty, Jenny, Krista, Mindy, Noelle, Shelby, Trina, Reba, Cassandra, Nikki, Kelsey, Shauna, Jolene, Erling, Claudine, Savannah, Casey, Dolly, Kendra, Kylie, Chloe, Devin, Emily, Becky.
Nope.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show on a Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday the 14th of July. It's already that halfway through the year, believe it or not. Crazy, isn't it? We'll be with you for the next, normally around about 90 minutes or so, go through the latest movie releases, some movie news, UK box office top 10, and then go to the home release section, which we'll do then going through the latest UK box office, UK Blu-ray and top 10, Blu-ray and DVD top 10 even, when I untangle my tongue.
Eventually.
Yeah. And then a look at the new DVD and Blu-ray releases. So in cinema section, we are covering these new movies.
Yep, the Thunder Buddies return in comedy sequel Ted 2 and small Irish Oscar-nominated animated adventure with Song of the Sea.
Yep, as well as then in DVD and Blu-ray, quite a bit more to cover in this week, but we'll go through them.
Horror sequel The Woman in Black 2 Angel of Death, comedy with unfinished business. Studio Ghibli brings us their penultimate film with The Tale of Princess Kaguya. You've got very quirky comedy horror with voices, drama with X and Y, thriller with Kill the Messenger, documentary Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Canon, and to round things off, Indian horror movie with The Dead 2.
And I also got to mention the release of X-Men Days of Future Past, The Rogue Cut has also been released this week too. So before that though, let's get on to some movie news. Starting off with this week's movie news, I've got Michael Giacchino has confirmed via Twitter that he's going to be returning to score Star Trek Beyond, the third in the rebooted Star Trek universe of movies. This one's going to be directed by Fast and Furious franchise helmer Justin Lin, and he's directing the movie after taking over from J.J. Abrams and Roberto Orci stepping down. Giacchino's confirmed this on Twitter, saying, "So thrilled to be working with Justin Lin and the rest of the Enterprise crew on Star Trek Beyond. Let's boldly go." It's currently shooting. It's going to be released next year, 8th of July 2016 is when it's currently set for. So, you know, in a year's time, 50th anniversary of Star Trek, and Michael Giacchino doing the music for the third time in a row.
Good, because his music is fantastic. I love his music. It's brought that familiarity back to Star Trek, because there was such a big gap between the last Star Trek film and when this new trilogy started, and so it brought some familiarity back to that, but yet he had his own little twists to it, and his previous music as well has got it brings out so many different emotions when you listen to it. He did do the score for Super 8, didn't he?
Yeah. He's generally worked with mostly of J.J.
Abrams. Yeah, and so Super 8 score is just phenomenal. I absolutely adore that score. And there is one scene in particular where it involves watching a whole movie, and the score is perfect for that scene, and he knows how to actually get things right. So I'm glad that they've stuck with him for the next Star Trek film.
Yeah, it's nice that, because I think that the music is like a character all its own, and it's like recasting an actor to play the same role. It doesn't quite have the same feeling, and the music is all about the feeling, so that's important as well.
It is one of the hardest things to get right as well in a film, because you need it to match perfectly with the scene, because if you do something that's out of key with what's on screen, then you're going to just lose your audience, because it's not going to match, it's not going to meld together.
Yep. My final piece of news is that Ben Affleck has been confirmed not only as being in the next Batman vs Superman film, but who will be doing a Batman standalone movie afterwards, which will also be directing as well as playing the role of Bruce Wayne and Batman. There's been no confirmation date yet of what's going to happen regarding the film, but it's expected that they'll probably be aiming to get a 2018 release done after next year's Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad, which the Comic-Con footage was just recently released of the latter, confirming that there is a Batman cameo appearance in the movie.
Yeah, we'll get the Suicide Squad trailer put up on the site itself on mondaymovieshow.co.uk. You can also find the Batman vs Superman trailer up on there, so I'll get the Suicide Squad one up at the end of this week's show.
Yeah, and it's only been sort of leaked, and then because of the fact that it was leaked, Warner Brothers made the decision then to release that version. And they announced with a big press thing saying, we wanted to wait and make sure and get it all. It was supposed to be just for people at Comic-Con, but as far as I'm concerned, if you've got it ready to show at Comic-Con, then it should be ready to be shown everywhere else. And I was annoyed at that, and I was glad that they kind of did release it in the end. I did notice they made a few little changes to it. They cut some bits out and added some bits, and they changed the font of the text as well. The title had a horrible, weird, kind of very typical font on the end of it, which did not sit well with me. Although saying that, the whole Suicide Squad trailer doesn't really entirely work for me, but the bit at the end with the credit, I was kind of like, oh, that looks awful, and they've realised that they've released it with actually one that looks fairly decent.
It is the first trailer, the teaser kind of thing for the Suicide Squad. It's a very big teaser anyway, considering that the film is not out until the middle of next year. We're getting a lot of them, even if you take Comic-Con out of the picture. We're getting a lot of trailers for films next year, specifically animated films. Disney Pixar have released trailers for their upcoming four films, pretty much. So we're getting lots of trailers, and that's the reason why with the Deadpool one, they said we're not releasing the one from Comic-Con. There's going to be a trailer released in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, although I have seen the one with Deadpool, and I gotta say, loving it. Really, really loving it. I love the look of it. I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, but regarding with Batman, we'll see how Ben Affleck copes as Batman, because if you look at the trailer for Batman vs Superman, he is brooding. I think the trailer was a bit... I wasn't fully sold on it, so we'll see when... I wasn't, but we'll see. It's my skeptical superhero thing inside of me going, yeah, this is probably not going to be very good.
I think it does go a long way to addressing a lot of fans' concerns over Man of Steel, and how, in particular, how Man of Steel ended the last half hour of the film. And I think it goes a long way to address that in the way that that's going to be affecting the storyline of the DC movies now.
But we'll see how he handles Batman, and see if he's able to actually pull it off with Batman vs Superman. It'll give us an indication of what he would be like on his own, rather than going toe to toe with such an iconic character like Superman. And Ben Affleck has already proven that he is a fantastic director anyway. He hasn't done a film on this scale, but he can add drama, and so if that's the case, we might see a slightly different side to Batman.
He has done a film on that kind of scale. I mean, there was...
Well, I wouldn't say it's superhero directing, superhero scale.
Directing, but yeah. Okay, fair enough as a director. Acting, yeah. Director, yeah, okay.
Because he has done big films acting, going all the way back to Armageddon.
Yeah. Well, that's not really... Can't really call Armageddon acting.
Yeah, I know, but it's still a big, huge, massive film, and so he's done them previously, but he has never directed a film like that. The biggest film he's directed is Argo.
Yeah.
And so
fantastic job at it.
We'll see what he's like when he's given a budget of 150 to 100 million. My news, start off with some sad news. Actor Omar Sharif has passed away at the age of 83. He was very well known for starring in Dr. Zhivago and also Lawrence of Arabia.
I mean, it's a sad thing that he's passed away, and the thing is, I haven't seen him in anything for a while. I mean, the last thing he did, actually... last film, and he said that it was the reason why he retired, but the last film when he retired was the much troubled production of The 13th Warrior, which is a film that I actually really, really love, but the one with Antonio Banderas, and him, basically he's only got a small cameo bit at the beginning of it, a small intro scene, but he said that was the film's performance, because it did really badly at the box office, was partly the reason why he quit acting and decided to retire acting. But I mean, it's a shame to take that from it, but I mean, it's the thing, if you look back at all the things he has done, and Dr. Zhivago, and if you look back, he's one of those actors who he's disappeared into a lot of roles, And there's a lot of roles people will go, was that him? And I think they'll go, yeah, it was. And be surprised. Sorry, it just sounds like the dog in the background there.
Well, he was from Egypt, and so he was the first big actor to break out from Egypt. So it shows you how big he was acting wise from the 50s upwards. Like you said, if you go through to the 90s and noughties, he took a step back from that. And my guess is he was just that was it for him. He knew where his end was when it comes to his career in film, and he decided to step away from it. But it's still sad to see the departure of Omar Sharif, because he was a big name in cinema.
Yeah.
Couple of other pieces of news. John C. Reilly has confirmed that he has signed on for a second Wreck-It Ralph film.
Good. I mean, the thing is, Wreck-It Ralph was one of those ones that it's a film that managed to get so many things, references crammed into it, that I wonder, are there enough references left that they can cram in more? Because otherwise, it's gonna be one of those weak, inferior sequels.
Well, video games is a big, huge, massive mine for you to just go to town on it. There is a load of iconic characters. But the thing that stood out with Wreck-It Ralph was it was the first time that Disney showed Pixar how to do an animated film properly. A 3D animated film properly. Because Pixar just fell off the wagon when it came to films. And then Disney released Wreck-It Ralph. And they said, this is how you do it. And now Pixar is coming back as well. So Disney is becoming the behemoth of behemoths, the ultimate powerhouse when it comes to anything. Final piece of news is Variety have confirmed that actress Marissa Tomei will play Aunt May in the new Spider-Man film.
Do you think they're going a bit younger casting because of the fact they're having a younger Spider-Man? Because it seems to me that's kind of a thing they're doing. I don't know that I don't have any problem with her, but I just think, is it them just going younger because of that, or is it them going younger because they're thinking, oh, we need to get someone who's going to be around for a few films or something like that?
It's probably down to the latter, but I could not see the uproar when this was announced on social media. The people were annoyed the fact that she is just way too young to play Aunt May. So what? Who cares? If she can play her character really well, then fine, she'll be the actress for the job. They're definitely going for a more younger feel to it. So, like you says, it's probably so they can tie them down for more than just one or two films. And so I'm really hoping that because they've cast Aunt May in it, they're not going for another origin story because they are starting young. I'm really hoping that they're not going to go for it a different standpoint of view for an origin story, because we've already seen it twice. We don't need to see it a third time.
Yeah. I guess, well, I don't know. It will. It's hard to guess, really, because of the fact that we haven't seen much of anything about it yet. They haven't started filming yet, and it's going to be... When was the release? I can't remember when it was supposed to be released now. It's got
something like 2017, yeah. 2018. Remember, it was getting pushed back, and they are starting a universe with it as well. So the old signs are pointing to the inevitable origin story if it is going to be your universe. And if that's the case, oh God.
Yeah.
But that's it for my news.
Okay, so I didn't realise that was your last piece of news. Okay, so that's it for this week's news. Let's go on to UK box office top 10, starting at number 10 with Song of the Sea,
which we'll be reviewing after Ted 2.
Yep. Number 9 is Love and Mercy.
Yeah, which is a new entry. We haven't been able to manage to see this film. It centres around the Beach Boys in two eras of time in the 1960s and the 1980s. It has John Cusack in it, who stars as Brian Wilson in the 80s, and Paul Dano, who stars as Brian Wilson in the 60s. And it's just about their life, about the Beach Boys' life. It's supposed to be actually really good, but not very many cinemas were showing it, which surprised me. It's gotten into the top 10, even though top 10 are just taking over £100,000.
Number 8, even, sorry, I was about to skip over, Spy.
Paul Feig's best film. I think people have... we've had enough now of just constantly berating him about Ghostbusters and stuff. We know we've got such low hopes with it, then might as well just leave it alone, see what happens with the film when it finally does come out. This gives me slightly more hope with it because it is his funniest film that he's directed so far, but it's still not very good.
Secret Cinema, Empire Strikes Back at number 7. Amy is at number 6.
which has been expanded into more cinemas, 214 sites in this case. It gets an even bigger expansion this Friday, which might give me a chance to see it, even though I'm stupidly busy over the weekend, because I'm interested in seeing it, because it's directed by Asif Kapadia, who did Senna. And if he can make Formula One interesting, he can definitely make a documentary about Amy Winehouse interesting to me, because I just didn't like her.
Number 5 is Magic Mike Double XL. Double L. Yeah.
You're practicing for the Minions, are you? Yeah, with Magic Mike Double XL, what they've done is they've stripped away, no pun intended there, with the drama, and just had lots of scenes of stripping. Now, that's what women want, and predominantly people who went to see this were women. 96% of the worldwide takings were women who went to see this. But you need at least something else there to prop the film up a little bit, because it just feels repetitive, and to be honest, I couldn't be bothered with the characters at all.
Terminator Genesis at number 4.
I didn't like the film that much. It wasn't the big, huge, massive car crash I expected it to be. A lot of people were predicting that it was, but it still wasn't that good.
I enjoyed it more than that. I thought it was quite good, and I actually liked the time travel thing. For the actual twists and turns of it actually made sense for me, so it worked for me, I think, more than you did. Terminator Genesis at 4. That's Jurassic World at 3.
Yeah, it's the first of Universal's films, Universal's dominance in the top 3. At the first time, if you look at the UK, the box office top 10 post on the site, you'll see some statistics, and it's just Universal must be in absolute glee at the moment, because they're unstoppable. They're the first studio to have 3 films in the top 3. No studio has ever managed to do that. They'll be the first studio to have 4 films go past the £30 million mark. They'll be the first studio to have 4 films open up with £10 million plus in the history of the box office. So they're just loving it at the moment. And Jurassic World was the catalyst. It was the starter of it.
Yeah, it means they've got now a few franchises. It's just kind of rekindled that franchise now for potentially future films. Now I think we're going to have Universal being at the top in a couple of years' time with the sequels for those.
Yeah.
So number 2 is Ted 2, which we'll get to in just a moment, which means the number 1 film is still Minions.
Which actually, surprisingly, was expanded into a few more sites. Last week when it was released in around about 550 different sites. It's now in 605. So it's even in more screens. Yeah, it will pass the £30 million mark easily. Mark and Saxon from Following the Nerd hated the film. And so you can just imagine my defence of it. You need to listen to Following the Nerd's podcast from Thursday just gone. My defence of it, because I'm a big Minions fan, and even though I found this to be not as funny as Despicable Me 2, I've seen it twice, and I have laughed both times when I've seen it, and so it's not diminishing any of the jokes at all. I still found it really enjoyably funny, and it's entertaining for the 90 minutes. Their biggest qualm with the movie was the way the Minions spoke. And I can't believe that was their biggest qualm, because that does not annoy me at all. As a matter of fact, they speak more English in this one than they have actually ever spoken. So I can't say that as a problem. It's brilliantly entertaining.
I still haven't seen it, so I've not had a chance last week. I've basically, this weekend I was supposed to be away, but I didn't go because I was ill, amongst other things that happened and all. And so I've not been able to get out and see that. I've still not seen Mr. Holmes yet, which I want to see, which is absent from the top 10. And I haven't seen any of this week's new releases, which is why you're doing both of them. So take it away.
Yeah, so what we would have done, like you said, is we would have split them off. So my guess is you would have seen Ted 2, because I'm guessing you're interested in seeing it.
I am, yeah. You and I both had it as our favourite movie of 2000, the first film, the Ted film, in 2014? 13,
yeah.
So, how does this stand up to that one?
And it's a good job that you've got an unlimited card as well, because the amount of films that you need to catch up with is immense.
Yeah, I just don't have time to do it is the problem. Time, I wish I had a time card. If I had a time card, I'd be set.
Your other half is really not going to like you, is she?
No.
But yeah, Ted 2, it's the return of Seth MacFarlane. He's returning to direct, and after the not so successful A Million Ways to Die in the West, and it sees the pairing of the Thunder Buddies again. Mark Wahlberg, who plays John, and Seth MacFarlane, who does the voice of Ted. And in this case, he's John has split off from his girlfriend slash wife, who was played by Mila Kunis in the previous film, and so their relationship has ended. Ted is now, at the opening of the film, is just getting married to his girlfriend, who's played by Jessica Barton in the film, and so they seem to be enjoying their company. Their marriage seems to be going really well, and then all of a sudden they hit stumbling blocks in the fact that they start arguing after being married only a couple of months, because Ted seems to want to spend more time with his friend John, smoking weed and watching films and all that kind of stuff. And so one day Ted decides to come up with an idea of, why don't we have a child? Here's a clip.
Tammy, listen. I love you. Okay? And I don't want us to fight like we've been doing the past few months.
I don't know, Teddy. I mean, something's got to change. You know, because I can't do this no more. It's too much.
I know. And that's why I want to have a baby.
You do?
Yeah.
A baby? Like, really?
Yeah. See, I think if we got a kid to love, it'll teach us how to love each other again.
Oh my God, Teddy. You better not be messing with me.
I swear to God, not messing with you. I think you'd make an awesome mom.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I would, kick so much ass at momming.
So what do you say? We all good?
Yes! Oh, I love you! I love you so much!
Oh, baby, I love you too!
And so the big plan is to have a baby, and obviously he's a teddy bear, so that's unable to do that, and so he seeks the help of John to do that, and hilarity ensues in the sperm bank, and if you've seen the trailer, you can guess what happens there. However, things do start to get even worse for both Ted and his girlfriend, because of him being a teddy bear. The marriage that they have has been nullified, and now, because their marriage is no longer viable, they can't have a child together neither. And so a big, huge, massive conglomerate decides to seek out Ted because they want to copy him, while Ted and John go on a road trip with a lawyer who's played by Amanda Seyfried in this one, to try and get Ted his rights back, to show that he is a proper human. Now, that pretty much is the story of Ted 2, and unfortunately this will not be making our movie of the year list at the end of the year. In 2013, we made it our movie of the year because it was such an entertaining film. Now, that's not to say that Ted 2 is not entertaining, because it is. It has its moments, but they're quite few and far between, which is unfortunate, because a lot of jokes are just rehashes of jokes from the first film, from A Million Ways to Die in the West, and a lot of stuff that we've seen in things like Family Guy and American Dad. Now, that's what Seth MacFarlane does. He's able to take some of the jokes that he's done previously and sort of change them so they feel like fresh jokes. But in this one, they start to become a bit lazy. And so they brought in Amanda Seyfried's character, and she's supposedly the female version of John because she smokes weed and she's not really that intelligent. However, she's got really bad knowledge when it comes to action films or whatever, considering that her name is Sam and her middle name is Elle, and obviously her last name is Jackson. And so there is that running gag where you're Sam L. Jackson, and she doesn't even know who he is. And so you've got things like that playing off through the film. Giovanni Ribisi makes an appearance. He plays exactly the same character. He does exactly the same thing as he did in the first one, which was funny and creepy in the first one, and this one, it's just a bit annoying, and it's just a rehash. You've got Patrick Warburton, who, again, he appeared in the first one. He plays exactly the same character in this one. They heighten up his character a little bit more, but again, it's a bit of a miss. A couple of the jokes, I have to admit, did make me laugh, and it is a couple of the moronic, gross out kind of jokes, which made me giggle, laugh out loud, as a matter of fact. So at least it managed to do that, but it will not be making my top 10 films of the year list, and I don't think it'll be making our overall list, which is unfortunate considering that the original did.
That's a bit of a shame then. So what about this week's other release then?
which is Song of the Sea. It's directed by Tom Moore, and it's a very small little Irish animated film. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature at this year's Oscars. Unfortunately, it didn't win. And it centres around a small little family, a father and son and daughter. They live in a lighthouse. They've previously lost their mother, which causes the daughter to sort of like regress into a shell of hers. She doesn't speak that much. She actually doesn't speak at all since the mother passed away. Not one single word is uttered from her mouth. Her brother, he's a bit reluctant to be a brother. At first he thought it was a good idea, but now he wishes he didn't have a sister. And so unfortunately when the sister goes missing, he decides to go on a journey for her, track her down to try and rescue her and bring her back home. Here's a clip.
How do you know that song?
My mother taught it to me.
And who are you? Human child?
I'm nobody.
Nobody?
I'm Ben.
Ah!
Oh. I'm looking for my sister. I lost her down here.
Look at that. I could do with a little more light. Could you? Suas nostalgia beyond? So good to see you again, my little soldier.
Holy moly!
Who are you?
Now here's the thing with Song of the Sea. Unlike with a lot of these big studio animated films where it's all CGI and computer generated, this is hand drawn. Every single thing in this film is hand drawn. The last film that the director did was released in 2009. So you can see the big gap. It's taken the studio 6 years to create this film. Well, less than 6 years to create this film. Around about 5 years to create this film. And you can definitely see why. Because it is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. It definitely belongs in the next to what Studio Ghibli produced. And you know how much of a fan I am of them. Down to the way they animate. They were reluctant to join the CGI companies. And so they stuck to their guns. And I'm so glad that there are other studios out there which attempt to do hand-drawn stuff, because it reminded me a lot of the French film Belleville Rendezvous, or The Sisters of Belleville as well, because that was hand-drawn, and that's a gorgeous film to watch. This is just the same. The music is just sumptuous. It's spot on. It's so relaxing, so chilled out, and it matches scenes perfectly. When you've got a tense scene, you've got the music that flows lovely through it. When you've got a scene where it's poignant, you've got music that will tug at your heartstrings. The voice acting is fantastic as well. Everything about this movie is just spellbinding. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It needs to be seen. It is definitely one of those films which definitely needs to be seen, and it is guaranteed to make my top 5 of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if most of my films in my top 10 are animated, because if what we're getting animation wise this year is the caliber of things like Song of the Sea, I am going to be such a happy bunny, and it's going to be such a nightmare for me at the end of the year when we have our award categories, because I will be doing the best animated feature. I'm going to have a nightmare choosing the winner of that, because Song of the Sea is definitely up there. It's a fantastic film.
Is it up to... Because, I mean, you are a big Studio Ghibli fan. Is it kind of up there with them? Do you think it's them, or do you hold them still in a different regard, sort of thing? Is it?
It's up there.
It's up.
It definitely. See,
the thing is, I haven't seen any of the animation of it, but seeing the poster, it looks like a different type of animation. It looks like very typical kind of 2D animation, but not kind of hand drawn, which is what Studio Ghibli really expertise in.
It is hand drawn. It's properly hand drawn. Every single thing is hand drawn. If you watch an interview with the director, he says just the characters in some of the scenes have 14 hand drawn animations per second, and so it is properly hand drawn. But Studio Ghibli's, I think their best films is the glory year of 1988 when they released My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies. It's up with them two. It is such an important film, and this has come from Ireland. This has come from within the United Kingdom, and so that I'm just so glad that there are films out there like this. It is that important. I don't think the kids that are raised on all these CGI films who only go to see them, no offense to them, the things like the Minions or the latest Disney Pixar ones, like the Big Hero 6s, I don't think they will be as fascinated with this film, which annoys me. I wish they would actually be able to see this kind of film, but if there's any cinema that's showing it, just no offense to Minions, avoid Minions, go in to see this instead, because you can see Minions anytime. This will be leaving the cinema very quickly.
Bit of a shame, but it sounds like you have your movie of the week already chosen.
We'll see. Can I just mention one other quick thing before we disappear? Human Centipede 3 final sequence. We were going to review. Well, I was going to review it this week. It would be interesting if you were going to review it. Have you seen any of the Human Centipede films?
Any of them? No, and I'm staying clear of them.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Don't touch them. But yeah, we were supposed to review the Human Centipede 3 this week. Instead, it's getting reviewed next week in the home release section because only one cinema was brave enough to show it. And early indication from me is it is the worst film I've seen this year. So prepare yourself for a stupidly horrendous rant next week.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, after which we'll be back with this week's home releases.
There was a real sense of you were doing something wrong, but that did give it that feeling of excitement.
When the reveal of the film happens, that's when it just becomes absurd.
And the atmosphere and just the sense you get whenever you go into it is undeniable.
It did absolutely zero for me, which could be for the hype.
What we've just discussed there is just scratching the surface on it.
Hi, I'm Eric England, the director of Contracted, and you're listening to From Page to Screen, the horror show.
And welcome back to this week's Monday Movie Show. We are into the home release section where we will be looking at the Blu-ray and DVD top 10 and reviewing these films.
We have The Woman in Black is back in Angel of Death, Woman in Black 2. We have the latest comedy, as you can see. I mean, you can't see me, but I am doing inverted, speech bubble quotation things. With Vince Vaughn in Unfinished Business. We have more animation with The Tale of Princess Kaguya. We have a weird, twisted, dark humour, thriller. Yeah, okay. It's hard to describe it, but we'll see when we get to it in the voices. We have a small British film with X plus Y. We have a small sort of indie thriller with Jeremy Renner in Kill the Messenger, and then rounding out with a couple of other releases, Electric Boogaloo, the Wild Untold Story of Canon films, and The Dead 2, and we'll also give a quick mention to X-Men Days of Future Past, The Rogue Cut.
So a lot to get to in the Blu-ray and DVD section. I will also be attempting to do the Tale of Princess Kaguya's Japanese name. It's not going to be easy on that.
Are you going to try it now, or are you going to work up to it?
Yeah, I think I'll work up to it. We've also got our TV Movie of the Week, but like I said, we have the Blu-ray and DVD top 10 to start off with, and so at number 10 is Big Hero 6.
Yeah, loved it. Great animation. Disney getting back on form with their animation. I thought it was brilliantly put together, and I love the characters and I love the character design. And anyone who hasn't seen it yet should do so. My other half is going to at some point when I make her watch it, because I do have the 3D Blu-ray. It's just, again, no time.
She has no choice anymore, does she, with the films that you want to watch? Because with you living together now, whatever you want to watch, she has to watch.
Well, no, because it works both ways. Then if she's got something she wants to watch, like Annabelle she wants to watch, I am not watching that. So she can watch that on her own, and I'll watch Big Hero 6 or something on my own. But
I would love to be a fly on the wall in the room when she's forcing you to watch Annabelle and just see you there with a cushion or something. Just, nope, not watching this.
Yeah, not
actually, Annabelle is not a good one to actually see it because it's not very scary at all. I would like to see It Follows, maybe, see what your reaction would be to something like that.
I want to see It Follows. I do want to see It Follows, just not had time.
Or if you had to go and see The Gallows, which is out this Friday. You just imagine with that. And number 9 is American Sniper.
Nothing more we can say about this other than it's not everything it's cracked up to be. It's not terrible, but it's not brilliant, I don't think, and as it was made out to be in the Oscars.
At number 8 is Taken 3.
Talking of not brilliant, this doesn't even come close to not brilliant. It's awful.
It's beyond awful. At number 7 is Kingsman: The Secret Service.
I really, really loved this. I thought it was witty. I thought it was charming. I thought it had some real gusto for the action sequences, and I thought that there's this whole controversial thing about the kind of the jokes in it being a bit laddish and being a bit sexist, but it's all in kind of reference to the old Bond films, which were all like that anyway. So I have no problem with it. I think it's a great film.
At number 6 is In Your Entry for Chappie,
which is Neil Blomkamp's not our favourite film of his. We disagree on exactly where it comes, being middle or last of his films, but definitely not his best one, although it's got some great performances in it and some great stuff from Sharlto Copley as Chappie the robot. Has completely replaced digital character, but it's worth seeing. It's just a case of whether or not when you come out at the end of it you're going to think it was as great as it thinks it is.
At number 5 is In Your Entry for Still Alice.
Still not seen it.
You definitely do need to see it, even if it is just to see how good Kristen Stewart is, because we keep on mentioning it all the time how much of a stoic actress she is.
Well,
but this is
perfectly fine in Welcome to the Rileys, but other than that, I've not seen her in anything that I thought she was good.
This is by far the best thing she's ever done. Definitely. I'm eager to see Camp X-Ray because that is a continuation of how good she is, and also The Clouds of Silas Maria. That's out in a couple of weeks' time, and so I'm eager to watch that as well because she is supposedly fantastic in that. So I think she's might have turned a corner, but she's really good in this. The whole film is it's a brilliantly acted film and very well shot. It has a couple of problems with it, but you forgive it because of how strong the actresses are in the film. At number 4 is Jupiter Ascending,
which I enjoyed, but it's not a great film. I mean, it has problems. It is a Wachowski's big action blockbuster thing, and you get your money worth with it because it has got a 2-hour story. It's got ridiculous overblown action scenes. It's got massive special effects, but it's just not quite sort of there. It's missing something, and it's a case of that it just seems to think, oh, we're missing something, chuck in some action sequences, and that's the problem with it.
It's missing more than something. It's missing a hell of a lot of stuff. It's missing a decent plot, decent acting, decent storyline, decent everything. Apart from special effects.
I think it's a good science fiction film. I just think it's not. It suffers because of the fact it's kind of rushed. But and it's got some terrible dialogue, I'll say that for it. But I don't think it's as bad as it's been made out to by a lot of people, and I enjoyed it. And I certainly had less trouble staying awake with it than I have with other films.
My guess is number 3, Focus. This is a new entry.
Yeah, I like this. It's a thing of that. It's one of these films about the con job and and doing that kind of thing, and the thieves and that kind of thing, and working together as thieves, which. It's perfectly fine, but it doesn't bring anything new to the genre. There's nothing new to it. Will Smith is perfectly fine, but it's kind of like he hasn't been in anything for a few years, and you just end up coming out of it going, Will Smith, you haven't done anything for a few years, and that's the film you decide to kind of come out of not doing anything. And it's very, very average in those regards. It should be better for having Will Smith in it because he is a good actor, and he given the right thing, he's really, really good. And in this, he's just okay because the film is just okay.
Sorry, I'm just slightly distracted because Hayao Miyazaki has announced that he is creating a CG film, a CG short film though, so not full film, but it's his first CG film about a tiny little hairy caterpillar. Okay. And that's a bad segue then into number 2, which is 50 Shades of Grey. Especially after mentioning tiny hairy caterpillar.
Which is a film that I like what it's trying to do. I don't think it manages to do it at all. I think it's a film that it would actually be better without the sex scenes in it, because the sex scenes, to be honest, are just boring. Most of the film doesn't have it, but it's trying to have this thing about the tete-a-tete between the two characters, but the thing is they have no chemistry whatsoever, so it just falls flat on its face.
More than flat on its face. And at number 1 is the second best exotic Marigold Hotel.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. It's not exceptionally brilliant, but it's another. It basically is another more of the same. The first film, if you liked it, you enjoyed it, then you have no problem with this one, because it is, and it's not better. It's not worse. It's not worse per se. It's not up to the level of the first one, but it's not. It doesn't do anything you think, oh, just get on with it kind of thing. It is more of the same, but in a good way.
Right. Let's get on to the first review of the night in the home release section. It's into the horror genre, which you're a big fan of. It's The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. Have you seen the first Woman in Black?
Nope, not had a chance to. And I am kind of curious, but I'm kind of like, oh, I don't really want to see it because it's horror.
Yeah,
it's not my genre.
The first Woman in Black, I think it might be straddling on the edge of what you would be able to comprehend or watch. It reminds you if you took, say, an episode of Doctor Who which involves the Weeping Angels, and sort of like made that a little bit more adult orientated, that's what you would get with The Woman in Black. It's got that kind of tone to it. And so The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death, feels very much like that, because it is set 40 years after the incidents that happened with the original Woman in Black. Daniel Radcliffe is no longer in the film. You need to watch the first one to see why. And in this one, it's set during the war, so it's got a very much like a Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe kind of feel, because it just centres around two teachers who were given some kids. They need to take them off into the far reaches of the countryside. In this case, the far reaches of the countryside, in the abandoned house from the first Woman in Black one. And so you can probably guess what's going to happen in this house. This house is run down, it's dilapidated, there's cobwebs all over the place, there's bushes and branches that have crashed through the window, and so they're reluctant at first to steer in this house. But obviously they've got nowhere else to go, and so they decide to steer in this house, and one of them, she sort of like establishes a friendship with the male character in the film, who's played by Jeremy Irvin, and then he starts to help them out when she discovers creepy goings on in the house. Here's a clip.
Everybody stay close. Please be quiet. Let's hold hands, and then if anyone lets go, two of us will know about it. His friends had eyes, so they died. Blind man can see her. Close your eyes. Everybody. Let's say our prayer before bedtime, all right? Come on, there are 4 corners to my bed, 4 angels round my head, 1 to watch, 1 to pray, 2 to bear my soul away. There are 4 corners to my bed, 4 angels round my head, 1 to watch, 1 to pray, 2 to bear my soul away. It's all right. Okay. Jean. Bye. Jean! This is madness.
I probably should have warned you about what was going to happen at the end of the clip, but during that I was smirking because I forgot to say that there was going to be a bit of a scream at the end, but that was the only audio clip that I could gather together to play, because the rest of them were just pretty much quiet, and then all of a sudden a bang at the end. At least in that one there was some speech. But it gives you a feel of what The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death is like. The first one is not like that clip. It's much more creepier. It relies on the creepiness and darkness of the moors and the swamp area around the house, and when he's trying to unravel the secrets of the house. This one, it goes and it tries to rely on too much of the typical horror tropes, where it is all about quiet, and then bang, something loud happens. And the proof was in that clip, and that's its detriment. That's the problem with the film itself. It's lost a lot of creepiness, because you know what the house is like now, because it's the same house from the first one. And that's not to say you can't set another film, a sequel, in exactly the same place. You look at the Amityville movies, and how many times a movie has been set in that Amityville house. You look at other films similar in tone, the Grave Encounter films, the 2 of them. The sequel is set in the same insane asylum where the first one's set. So you can do that, but you need to change things enough about the sequel to add enough creepiness. You need to give you new rooms to explore, and you need new areas to explore. When in fact you don't get enough of that. You do get the basement area, which was never shown that much in the first one, but that's probably the only new area where you can get scared. It expands too much as well into airfields, and for some reason it decides to explore the town, which is not far from where this house is, and it just loses the creepiness when it does things like that. So because the fact that the film itself is trying to expand more so on the first one, it loses a lot of the tension, it loses a lot of the scares from the first one. It's not a bad film, it's pretty decent, it's okay, but that's all it is.
Okay, on to Unfinished Business, which is the comedy with Vince Vaughn in it as playing the main character Dan. He is a sort of travelling salesman who works for this company that's run by Sienna Miller. At the very opening of the film, he is about to be let go and instead walks out. Ends up doing has a kind of a Jerry Maguire moment where he stands up and says, who's coming with me, and ends up taking on board with him to do his own sort of company. He ends up taking on Tom Wilkinson's character, who's someone who's sort of retiring from the company but doesn't want to, and ends up also hiring Dave Franco's character, who was someone who was just there to actually interview for a job and didn't get it. Cut to a year later, the company that they're running on is basically on fumes for finance. They are down to their last chance of getting this sort of deal with a company which is based in particular in Germany. They go over to there, decide what they're going to do is go over and try and win them over. Of course, not having the best luck, first of all, even getting to where they're planning to get to, and then also having to try and win over the people who it seems are also in deals with other people. Amongst other problems they have is the fact that the character of Mike Pancake, played by Dave Franco, is a little bit of a, idiot. Here's a clip.
Flügelschlagen. Why is the GPS in German?
Because I asked for it in German. Because we're in Germany.
That's not... It doesn't work like that.
But don't you need it to have the German information in it? Like the German bridges and the German streets and such?
The English would have the German streets in it, in bridges. They would just tell you to turn right and left in English so you could understand. Damn it, Mike. Flügelschlagen. Flügelschlagen. What does that mean? See, Pancake? I don't know...
Richtung, verdammter
Thank you.
Idiot!
I'm a guest here in your land, but thanks.
Flügelschlagen, Dan.
So here's the thing with Unfinished Business. It's one of those films where you have the comedy and it's trying to do sort of the typical kind of thing, but then adds in these really kind of tasteless jokes at times, and then at times has moments of brilliance. There's some ideas in there that work really well and seem to be perfectly fine. There's particularly one about him trying to find a room, can't find a room, so he ends up taking this what he thinks is just a normal room. It's actually an art gallery, and he is an installation in the room as businessman number 21. And it's a weird thing where his room is on display, and so everyone walking past in this gallery can see him as he's just going about his business in his room. These kind of weird ideas like that kind of work. Then there's this weird thing with a character played by Nick Frost who has a small role in it, which it has a bit of it's a kind of I'm not sure that it's particularly tastefully done or even necessary in there, and has some moments that are a bit questionable. So it's a film that's a very kind of hit and miss. You have the typical thing of Vince Vaughn doing typical Vince Vaughn, and it's really disappointing to see again him just doing the typical same kind of Vince Vaughn thing. That's just a waste of material and talent. And I mean, the only thing that I can say that's really good about it is it's only 91 minutes long, so it's not too long, but that's it.
Comedies, we're not having a good time of it this year, are we?
No, we generally don't with comedies. It's an exception if we do, but generally no.
That's the reason why Ted made it a list of in 2013, and last year it was 22 Jump Street. And so we're hoping to get at least one really funny comedy a year, hopefully. And so far we're we're over halfway through the year, and unfortunately that hasn't been the case yet.
Nope.
So let's just hope that there is something that's going to sneak by us and give us a comedy wedgie by the end of the year and make us realise, there is something funny out there. Next up, the Tale of Princess Kaguya, or Kaguya Hime no Monogatari.
Bless you.
Thank you. It's directed, and it's his final film as well. It's directed by Isao Takahata. The next movie that's coming out is When Marnie Is There, and that is supposedly the final full film from Studio Ghibli, even though they are going to be making short movies. And in this one, you've got the two casts, the voice casts. You've got the Japanese cast, which is voiced by Akiya Asakura and Yukiji Asaoka. And then you've got the American cast, which is actually very star-studded in the forms of Chloe Grace Moretz, James Caan, Darren Criss, Lucy Liu, Bo Bridges, James Marsden. And the film itself is a very simple Japanese folklore tale story. It centres around wife and husband. He's a bamboo cutter. He cuts open some bamboo one day and he discovers a tiny little baby. And so they decide to raise this baby. The baby turns out to be Kaguya. And then they want the best for their child, and so they move her away from the countryside into the city where they want her to become queen. However, Kaguya was put on this earth for different reasons, because she seems to age much more quicker, much more faster than anybody else, and there is something else behind Kaguya. It's simple as that. That's it. As I said with Song of the Sea, only Studio Ghibli was the other company, along with a couple of the small ones out there, which were predominantly working with hand-drawn animation. As I've said, Hayao Miyazaki is now dipping his toe into the CGI stuff, because he's turned around and says it's really difficult to get good paintbrushes now and good paper. And so the way Studio Ghibli are looking at things is that's the way they're doing it as well. It's such a painstaking task to create an animated film, especially when it's hand-drawn. And if this is the last, When Marnie Was There, but it is going to be hand-drawn, but not as much as the Tale of Princess Kaguya, because Isao Takahata must have been working on this film for quite a few years, because the pencil drawings and the drawings in the film itself is so expertly done, especially at scenes that move at such a pace. There is a scene which involves Kaguya just sick and tired of Princess being brought to the place where she's lived just so she can get married and become queen. So she decides to run away. And the way Takahata and his the people who are working alongside him handle this is the speed of Kaguya. She belts through the countryside, through houses, and it's just a blur on screen, and a lot of people might be put off by that, but it's just handled with such nuance and such brilliance that it's just captivating. And that's only a small scene. Obviously, you've got the big, expansive stuff when they involve a lot of the mythical things, the fantastical elements of it, and you get all the colour and beauty of that. You get the beautiful hand-drawn, hand-painted backgrounds that Studio Ghibli are famous for. I would love a piece of their art just hanging on my wall, because it is so spectacular to look. You would notice different things every single time you see the film. And so I'm a huge Ghibli fan. I haven't seen a Ghibli film that I hate. There have been one or two of them which are they're not up to the Ghibli standard, but they've still got enough stuff into it that they are watchable. The Tale of Princess Kaguya is going out on a high, and I'm putting off When Marnie Was There as much as I possibly can, because I know it is going to be probably the last time I'll be in the arms of something new from the studio of brilliance.
So, I mean,
I can stop gushing now.
Well, I'm just trying to, objectively, as someone who isn't a fanboy of Studio Ghibli, where does this stand in compared to other, Disney and all the DreamWorks ones and that kind of animation sort of things?
Well, the way I think Studio Ghibli are handling their last couple of films is this is fan service to the people who've stuck by Ghibli since day one. Ghibli have been going technically since the 1960s, when Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki worked together on The Little Norse Prince. Their first film was in the very late 70s, early 80s. But they formed Ghibli itself in 1984. So the last few films, When Marnie Was There, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, They are fan service, so you need to be a fan of Studio Ghibli. It's probably the wrong films to make it your first film to watch of Ghibli. You need to go back and watch something like Princess Mononoke or The Cat Returns or My Neighbor Totoro to start your journey off with Ghibli. And once you watch either of those three, and that's just three I've chosen from out of the air, you'll be instantly hooked, instantly. So you'll just
not one to watch first. Watch something else first, then go on to this.
This is probably one of the latter ones to watch. One of the last ones. You'll probably want to watch them in order, and if that's the case, you can sort of like leave The Little North Prince to one side because that was not involved in Ghibli. You need to start off with Princess Mononoke.
Okay, so I'll go on to then my next movie, which is The Voices. It's a movie which has Ryan Reynolds in it as Jerry, who is a bit of a weird guy. He's an outsider, a bit of a loner, and the reason for this is that he's on medication for a bit of a mental condition. The problem is that as a result of this, when he doesn't take his medication, he hears things like his pets talking to him. His pets, his dog Bosco, and his cat Mr. Whiskers, which are voiced by him, incidentally, as well. That sort of talk to him and kind of tell him about the sort of the impulses and things that he has. The thing of that he's actually got the impulses of a killer, and ends up ultimately killing a girl that he liked in his office, played by Gemma Arterton. Of course, when her body turns up with her head decapitated, which the head is missing, and apparently turns out to be in his fridge, he turns on the news, sees a report of this, and is a little bit alarmed, let's say the least. Here's a clip.
And now a grimmer story. A woman murdered, her partial remains dumped in the woods.
So sad.
So terrible. Reporter Sheila Hammer has an Action 1 News exclusive.
The grisly discovery Tuesday near Milton of an unidentified female stabbing victim has local police on the hunt for a serial killer.
Jerry, you're a serial killer.
Sheriff Weinbacker.
No, he isn't.
Now, with the aid of the FBI, we have developed a profile of the unknown killer. Male, late 20s or early 30s, white, lower middle class, trouble fitting in.
That's you, Jerry. Can I have an autograph? Shh.
Will he kill again?
Well, if it's not stopped soon, every indication is he will kill again.
You hear that, punk?
No.
You're a killer.
God.
A serial killer.
I don't want to be a killer.
Too late! There's no turning back! You're a stone-cold murdering maniac!
Told you so.
Told me so what?
Well, I told you like killing, and now the cops, they say the same thing.
So, here's the thing with The Voices. I like it, but I have issues with it. The problem I have with it is that it has all these potential things there, and it sets up so many things, and then just doesn't seem to follow through on them. And it has such potential that there are things that they could have done. There's ideas. It feels a little bit like a wasted opportunity. Several points during the film, there's things they could have done either to be more humorous, because there is dark humour in it, but it's very kind of straddling the line between whether or not it wants to be a thriller or wants to be a dark horror film. And it can't really decide which it wants to be, and tries doing both. And of course, when you do that, you end up failing at both. I do surprisingly like. I really do like Ryan Reynolds in the film. I think he's a really good performance in the film. I like Gemma Arterton in the film, although most of the film is her being relegated to playing a head that's stuck in the fridge. And there's also Anna Kendrick is in there as well as another co-worker who he has sort of interests in, and it's a weird film. It's one of these small indie films that is definitely punching above its weight, but a lot of the punches for me missing their target, not hitting spot on, and I just wish it had done certain things different. I wish it had taken advantage of the setup that it has and paid it off a lot more. And I think ultimately in the end it comes off as a little bit, at the end of it you're wishing I just wanted more, and I didn't get it. I liked it, I had fun with it, I enjoyed it, but I was ultimately disappointed by the end of it.
Me personally, I really liked it, because the film that it reminded me a lot of was Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. Now, I really like The Frighteners because it's a very underrated film, very forgotten film as well, and I definitely suggest people seek that out because it is such a really entertaining, brilliant watch. It's But
this isn't up to the level of The Frighteners for me, as far as I'm concerned, really.
I think they're both on level par myself, because I love The Frighteners, but I really like this because I loved it for its crazy insanity of it. And Ryan Reynolds handles his character with such brilliance, because he's not just playing the one character. His character's got multiple personalities, which is a really difficult thing to do from the bat. But he's also doing the voice of his cat and dog, and they're sort of like the devil, and then the devil's devil on his shoulder, because all of a sudden the dog is they keep on spouting out, "Oh, you've got to do this," and then one of them's on his tell him to do the opposite. But then they just turn around and become, "You've got to do this, but you've got to do it even worse than what you're doing it." And so I loved the creepiness of it, the weirdness of it, the over the topness of it, and it's such an entertaining, kooky movie that I just went along with it and just enjoyed it. So
you definitely did more than I did, but I just found it a lot of moments in it. I thought, "Oh, do this, be inventive," and it just didn't.
I thought it was more inventive than enough than it was. So if it went, I personally thought if it did more, then it would have just pushed itself too far over. So up next, in a completely different tact, is X plus Y. Directed by Morgan Matthews. It's a small little British film. It stars Asa Butterfield, who plays Nathan. And now Nathan, he gets bullied a lot at school because he's an outcast. His obsession is mathematics. He absolutely loves everything to do with numbers. And so the kids at school think that he's a freak. And he's took under the watchful guise of Rafe Spall's character, who plays Martin. Now, he's a teacher who is the kind of teacher when you go to school, you've got one of those down-to-earth kind of cool teachers who you can speak to, who would speak onto your level, but they would reprimand you if you did something bad. So, for example, there's a scene in the film where a group of kids thinks it's a fantastic idea to smoke some drugs outside of school. And so, obviously, he doesn't decide to tell the headmaster. He tells them, "If you do it again, I'm obviously going to tell the headmaster." But then he decides to smoke the drugs, which he takes off them. And so he's that kind of teacher. And so Nathan befriends him, and ultimately Martin befriends Nathan's mother, who plays Julie. And Martin comes up with an idea of, why doesn't Nathan join this group of children who are going over to Japan to take part in this huge massive mathematical competition. Here's a clip.
144, 233, 377, 610.
987, 1597, 2584. I like the Fibonacci sequence too. Invaluable for music compositions. So you're new. Fresh meat. How's that going? Okay. So you're the shy type. Makes a nice change, to be honest. Most of these weirdos just want to show off about how much maths they know. What?
Nothing. It's just I'm usually the weird one. They do all seem good at maths, though.
Yeah. Here you are neither weird nor the best mathematician, I'm afraid. You are painstakingly average.
Now, here's the thing with X plus Y. It's a very well acted drama, especially from Asa Butterfield, who's definitely is one of those actors who everything that he seems to be in and everything that he seems to touch is turned to brilliantness, from seeing him in stuff like Hugo up to Ender's Game to this. And so it's very well acted from Asa Butterfield. Rafe Spall is on top form as well. And so is Sally Hawkins and Eddie Marsan, who's in the film. And so everybody plays their part. But it is all centres around the character of Nathan by Asa Butterfield. The fact that you need to believe that he is well into mathematics, and you need to believe that he is an outcast. But ultimately, you heard in the clip there, he gets told that he is just a very normal, average person when in a group of his peers, in a group of people who think the way he thinks. And that is the perfect situation for a kid like him to be in. It's a story that tells children that there is friends out there, there are people out there who are exactly like you. If you think that you're an outcast in school because you're different to the football players who just want to constantly play football, but all you want to do is read manga, for example, and you get picked on for doing that. There are friends out there, there are people out there who are into manga who you will get on with. And so just don't lose hope. And that's the whole point of the film. Don't lose hope. Don't fall down to the bullies. And so it's a very well acted film, very intelligent, very smart, and just very well paced as well. It's not a movie that overstays its welcome. It's the story lasts for its running time, and it's interesting enough for its running time.
Sounds more like I'll see it eventually, but it sounds more like I'm going to be really annoyed that Ace Butterfield's even more so didn't get the job of Spider-Man.
I'm sort of glad, because if that's the case, he's going to be able to do more films like this. And so I'm so glad that he's actually, that he doesn't have to do Spider-Man and be tied down to like 3 or 4 Spider-Man films.
Okay, I'll do my last main film, although I've got another one we'll quickly mention later, is Kill the Messenger, which is directed by Michael Swester, I'm not sure. But it's based on the book written by Gary Webb, who is the character that Jeremy Renner plays in the film. It's based on the true story of events that happened during the 1980s when Gary Webb, an up-and-coming journalist, cordons on something, finds out about the whole thing of makes a link between the CIA and the whole thing of there being an increased number of drugs in the United States, and starts to make the links and connections between the fact of that there may be something to the fact of that the CIA may have been involved in smuggling in drugs into the United States. And sort of in order to sort of finance operations they have in other countries which would be technically considered illegal. He gets these sort of thing, starts to sort of put the story together, puts out information and things regarding that, and then starts to find himself becoming under sort of scrutiny and becoming the target of harassment and things going on to try and convince him and try and put him off of investigating any further and telling this story. Here's a clip.
We don't agree with everything that happens in our agencies, so this is a little awkward for us, but you're getting into some sensitive areas. There are ongoing operations you're in danger of exposing. Operations that have taken months, years to set up, thousands of man-hours, millions to fund.
And how do you know that?
We know you were in Nicaragua. We know you saw Manassas.
Am I being followed?
What's your angle, Webb? Some governmental informants are scumbags?
Look, I was under the impression that you guys had something to say to me, but to answer your question, no. My angle is that the American government knew drugs were put on the streets to fund an illegal war.
What you want to say happened never happened.
Then why am I here?
American kids were going to die in that war.
American kids did die, and they're still dying. Just not the ones you care about, apparently.
We'd never threaten your children, Mr. Webb.
What? What'd you say?
So, here's the thing with Kill the Messenger. It's very much a thriller in the vein of things like Michael Mann's movie with the tobacconist thing. I forget the name of it now. The one to do with tobacco and such, where it's not The Insider. Sorry, that was it. But it's not an action thriller. There are no action sequences in this film. It is purely a thriller set around this character and the fact that he finds himself in a situation where he's being hounded, he's being harassed, he's coming up against walls, he's having things put in his way, obstacles to put there, and it's all surrounding the character of Gary Webb, played by Jeremy Renner, and the problems he encounters. And it's all through as well, importantly through his performance, because he does give a great performance in the film. And it's a film that is kind of an indie film. It doesn't have a big budget thing to it, but it does do a lot with what I can only assume is a very minimalist budget to be able to make it into such entertaining and thrilling drama that it is. The one thing I will say about it is that the way it ends, and I'm not going to say anything in details about what it is because it will be spoilerish, but it does end with a afterword at the end of it saying, this happened next, this is what happened, blah blah blah. And the film, that's the only kind of letdown I had for it. I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, we're kind of building something else is going to happen, and maybe this will happen or something, and then you get to that certain point and it just tells you, it doesn't show you what happened next. It just sets up things and then tells you what happened. That for me was a big disappointment on it. So I do like it because it isn't a long film. It's less than 2 hours long, and I wouldn't have minded if they pushed it a little bit, given it another 5-10 minutes and shown us something more at the end instead of just telling us. I would have really loved if that had done, the payoff had been there more. But as it is, still, it is a fantastic performance, and I do love Jeremy Renner, and he's a great actor in the film. It really shows that it's an acting performance he can do.
Right, on to the final 2 films of the week. They're small films, so we're just putting them together. The first up is Electric Boogaloo, the wild untold story of Canon Films. Now, it's a documentary that centres around the studio of Canon Films, which was founded in the 70s by 2 people, Menheim Golan and Joran Globus. One was very business-centric and one was just wanting to make as many movies as possible. And that's exactly what Canon's ethos was like. The way they actually created films is they weren't bothered on quality as long as they released quantity and as long as enough money was coming in to pay for that quantity. Studios back in the 70s and early 80s were struggling to get anywhere more than 5 films out a year. Canon were churning out 20 films a year plus, and so you can just imagine if you've seen any action film, any cheesy low budget action film from the 70s, everything from Hercules in New York all the way up to the late 90s with their final film Masters of the Universe, you can definitely tell their quality. They tried to change it over the years by bringing in bigger actors, by signing up Sylvester Stallone, and he was the first actor to get more than $15 million for a film, which one of his movies, that was his biggest stipulation. He would only make a film for Canon if they would give him that much money, and so he was the highest paid actor that year when he did get that much money. And so they brought in, they released a Bruce Lee film. They were obsessed with Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson, and so they got Charles Bronson tied down to about 20 different films, all pretty much exactly the same ones. And Chuck Norris, because he could do his own martial arts, the way they thought, well, we're going to make him star in every single film that we're going to make. And so if they did a movie with Smurfs, they would have probably had Chuck Norris in a blue outfit karate kicking somebody's head off. And so
I'd love to see that, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But you grew up in the 80s, so you know what Canon films were like.
Yeah.
Their quality wasn't the best. And a lot of people didn't watch them for their quality.
A lot of them were seen straight to video at the time as well. They weren't big, massive cinematic releases a lot of the time. I think as well they did stuff like the Cabbage Patch Doll films and stuff like that. Things like that.
Yeah, the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, Garbage Pail Kids. Yeah, that kind of thing.
So yeah, you can just imagine. And the problem with the documentary is the fact that it pretty much tells the same story over and over and over and over again. It repeats itself too many times. And while watching these clips and watching how ridiculous some of the movies that they did create were, it's nice to see that. It just doesn't hold your interest up that much. And so I would have liked to see much more about the fighting between both Golan and Globus, because even though they treat each other like brothers, there was a lot of fighting between them, and their ultimate split off, because their biggest argument when they split off, they both came up with an idea of releasing a movie based on the Lombarda, and they both released exactly the same kind of film on exactly the same day. And because the fact that people weren't sure which one to go and see, they both took exactly the same amounts of money. So they'd done each other out of a big, huge, massive pot if they were still together, just because they had a spat. And so that's what they were like. And so that's the interesting part of the documentary. The rest is just nice to watch because you're seeing how ridiculous some of these films that they created is. The other film is The Dead to India, which is directed by the Ford brothers. It's the seminal sequel to The Dead. The first Dead was set in Africa. This one is set in India, hence the title. And it centres around a guy who works with turbines. He's trying to bring natural resources, natural energy to India when a zombie outbreak happens, and he needs to try and trek across India to meet up with his girlfriend who is pregnant to try and rescue her. The film is terrible. It is really shockingly awful because what they use in this movie is the slow walking zombie. And now when you do the slow walking zombie kind of film, you need to make sure that your movie is more contained, more smaller. Because of the fact that the zombies are lurching towards them, it needs to be on a smaller scale to add any kind of tension. This one, because of the fact that it's set across the entirety of India, there are honestly, I'm not kidding you, there is a scene where the guy has got a little kid who he's rescued, and they're on a motorbike, and you would expect lots of zombies. They go past one zombie, and he's actually just standing there, and then the next shot is exactly the same guy, the same actor, standing there. And so what they've done is they've moved the actor from the spot where he was at to a little bit way down the road. There is also a scene where they think it's a brilliant idea to attach the camera to the bike that they're riding, so it looks like you're on a ghost train, and it is treated like you are exactly on a ghost train, because the camera is in a stupid position. It's pointed down towards the wheel of the bike, and you can just see a little bit of the light. And then every now and again you see an arm of a zombie, or you see a leg of a zombie. And this guy is able to escape from them brilliantly. He just needs to walk up to them, go, hello, wave at them, and then just walk off in the opposite direction. And then for them to add any kind of action, he has a gun which never runs out of bullets. He has the most perfect shot. Every single shot makes contact with the zombie and kills them instantly straight away. And so this is a guy who works with wind turbines. He's able to use a gun. The film itself is ridiculous. It's badly acted, badly constructed, badly made, and a boring zombie film with very little blood in it. It's just majorly avoidable.
Should I quickly mention as well, because I did say about the X-Men Days of Future Past movie release, which is getting a special version of it being released. There was a version which was made before they edited it down and had to cut it down for time for cinema release. So they cut out about 20 minutes of stuff which involved the character of Rogue, which is played by I forget the name.
Anna Paquin.
Anna Paquin, yes, from True Blood. They have released this now this week as X-Men Days of Future Past: The Rogue Cut, which basically reinstates these scenes, has them all sort of done up in special effects, because there's a lot of effects in these scenes, and adds them in there, and actually is kind of the film as it was originally intended. And comparing the two, I mean, I really like Days of Future Past. I really, really like the Days of Future Past Rogue Cut. I actually think it's a better version of the film. I think it makes more sense, and I enjoyed it. So again, it's one, if you like the comic book films, and you've seen the X-Men films, and you like Days of Future Past, you might want to check it out.
Quick question: is it worth buying if you have got, say, for example, the 3D version of X-Men Days of Future Past? Is the 20 minutes of extra footage that worth it?
Not really.
Not?
I mean, it's a thing of that. It'll be one of those things that it's once you've seen it, that's it probably. But because I own it and I haven't got it, but I'm kind of like, oh, I want to get it, and so it's kind of things of that. It is a different film slightly, because there's things that are added in, and there's some things towards the end that are taken out because there are things done to make up for that whole segment being cut out of the film when it was released in cinema. So it's annoying that they do this. They release two different versions. I don't know why they couldn't have released it all on one disc, and you have the option to watch both versions and just use the seamless branching, because it's been done on lots of discs before, and it really does add something extra to it to have a different version like that available. So it's kind of a bit of a, you know, an affront to the fans, and a kind of in your face, oh look, we're just going to make loads of money off it. But it actually is a completely different part of the film in the middle, which adds about 20 minutes at one point. That
do you think the more fairer option would be, because the fact that Blu-ray players now are more connected, they are connected to an internet connection, and that's the advent of BD Live. Do you think that if people have got, say for example, the 3D Blu-ray version of it, say they've spent that extra money to buy them a slightly more expensive one, they should get that extra 20 minutes of footage given to them for free via BD Live?
Oh, absolutely. It'd be good if they did, but it'll never happen because they'd lose money on it. It's just a shame because it's a good film and it just means they've released a version of it which is slightly better, but loads of people will go, I'm not spending the 15 quid on that because I've already got it.
See, because the way I look at it is, if you look at, say, for example, The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings extended editions, there is enough in them to justify maybe rebuying them again, because you do have not just the extra footage, you have extra documentaries and much more information. And it's not just, say, like 20 minutes and then maybe an extra 10-minute documentary. It's a lot more extra stuff that you're getting. So you understand when it comes from that kind of thing. But when the release cuts like this, especially, it's only something like 6-8 months after the released X-Men Days of Future Past.
As well, I don't know as well. I don't think it's a 3D release as well, which is annoying because the film X-Men Days of Future Past is in 3D. But it makes you think back to X-Men, not even X-Men, just the Wolverine, the one that was just before it with Hugh Jackman's character on his own. And there was 2 versions of that released in the same pack, where if you bought the 3D version of the film, you got the 3D version of the theatrical cut, and then you got an uncut, unrated, or a more violent version, which was released with extra stuff in it for the uncut version, only in 2D. So they didn't bother making that into 3D, and that's kind of what they've done here. They've released a version now with the alternate version with the extra footage, but I don't think it's been done 3D.
It's really annoying when they do that. That's it for this week's new releases, both in cinema and Blu-ray and DVD. Let's have a look at TV movies of the week.
Shall I do mine first?
Yep, because I've only got one.
You only got one. Is any of yours on Friday or Sunday?
One's on Sunday, but very early hours of Sunday.
Right, okay. Well, my first one is Paul on Film 4 at 9 o'clock on Friday the 17th. That is the one with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, where they discover an alien. Funnily enough, sounds like Seth Rogen.
That's maybe it's because it might be.
Yeah. And then on Sunday, 2 films. The first of which is on BBC 3, 8 o'clock in the evening, is Shrek. No, not
interesting choice. No, I like Shrek.
Yeah, because it's the first one. It's the best one out of all of them. Although the others are good, or maybe the second one in parts, maybe second it's better. But I really love the Shrek films, and the first one is one of those ones that kind of broke the mould. And it's nice to see it again. And also BBC 3, no adverts. And then round out Sunday night evening with The Negotiator after watching Shrek. A little bit of a gap between them, but 10:50 p.m. on Sunday the 19th on Film 4, which is the one with Samuel L. Jackson, that man whose name we talked about earlier on. So I can't believe there's someone named Sam L. Jackson doesn't know who he is.
I know, exactly.
Surprising. But it's one with him as a hostage negotiator who's turned hostage taker, and Kevin Spacey, the great Kevin Spacey, brought in as the hostage negotiator, trying to talk him down while there's other aspects going on there involved as well. So one of the great films. It's a long film. It probably will not finish until near enough 1:30 in the morning, because it is 2 hours and a bit, and then there's adverts added to that as well. So be ready for it to be in a long film, or record it. Put it on your TiVo box or your Skybox or whatever. But a great film that I really, really like.
Yeah, my movie of choice is on very late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. So at 20 to 1 in the morning. On Sunday the 19th or Saturday the 18th, depending on which way you want to look at it. It's Carriers. This is the film starring Chris Pine. And it was released very much alongside the remake of The Crazies. Now, The Crazies is the better film. I think the remake is miles better than the original. And so that's a rare case when a remake is better than its original source material. Carriers is a much more smaller film that centers around Chris Pine and a few people who need to travel across the country when an epidemic has broken out. And so rather than being a zombie epidemic, it's a more viral thing that's broken out. And it's just about them trying to survive. And it's a really well-made film. It's a good double bill to watch alongside The Crazies. But because the fact that it's on at 20 to 1 in the morning, you're going to go very late if you're going to watch The Crazies after that. Yeah. But Carriers is my choice. And that's it for this week's show. Movie of the week. You have very little to choose from, don't you?
Yeah, but it's Kill the Messenger for me. Great performance. It's just basically all on Jeremy Renner's great performance in the film.
And mine's a nightmare to choose.
Well, it's not going to be Ted 2, is it?
No, cinema-wise, please seek out Song of the Sea. You have to seek that out. It's just such an interesting film to watch. DVD-wise, I'm going to do a tie between The Tale of Princess Kaguya, which you were expecting, and Voices, which you probably weren't expecting me to choose that, but I'll choose that because obviously Ghibli fan of me is going, please pick me. But I also want to give a shout out to something slightly more unique. And so I chose 3 films, even though it's movie of the week, not movies of the week. But we normally
what
pick something anyway.
What you're saying is you can't decide and you just want to cheat.
What I'm saying is avoid Ted 2. Don't watch The Woman in Black 2. X plus Y is a very close fourth. And Electric Boogaloo and The Dead 2 is avoidable. So it's just down to those 3. You've got 3 films to watch from my choices. So that is the end of this week's show. Make sure you check out the website mondaymovieshow.co.uk. A couple of trailers have been put up on the site. Like I said, I will add the one for Suicide Squad up on there as well. Facebook.com/MondayMovieShow, Twitter @MondayMovieShow, Andrew's on there at EHDVD, I'm at Cryptic Tadpole. You can email us at mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com, give us your feedback, and feedback is also welcome on Spreaker and also on iTunes and any of the podcast apps on Android as well. We will be back one day next week, hopefully Monday, but you never know with us, but we will let you know in advance when we are returning with next week's show. We'll play you out with a clip for Disney Pixar's latest film, which is out in 2 weeks' time in the cinema, Inside Out. And so until next time, goodbye.
Bye. Should also just say, adding up to make this clip make sense, it involves the main character dropping a grape.
5-second rule! 5, 4, hang on! 3, 2, 1! Got it!
Nice one, Joy.
Nice one. Whoa! No way! We are not eating that. Disgust, it's fine. It passed the 5-second rule. The grape touched the ground. It's poison. Oh, come on. It barely touched the ground. Wait, what? You know what else barely touches the ground? Yeah, stray dogs. Hold on. Toenail clippings. Yeah, roadkill. Hippie. Oh, dung beetles. Stop it. You can't believe it.
Shouldn't we do something?
No. It's a grape. It's not like we're eating broccoli. Ugh, don't even go there. Or boogers. You're evil. Or dog food. Shut your mouth.